How you doing, everybody? Vasu Vada Party, Casey Freelove here, coming up on this Monday edition of the Make the Money and Run podcast. What a weekend in the NBA. Semifinals are starting both in the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference. Utah finally has an opponent. The Clippers and Mavericks broke the run of road teams visiting, and the Phoenix Suns will finally play their game one tonight as the Denver Nuggets come into play. Major League Baseball. How about the Cincinnati Reds going into St. Louis and sweeping them on the road? The Yankees and Red Sox, it's still a yawn, even though it's a rivalry. And Fox has it and ESPN has it, but it's a yawn. The Red Sox go in there and win and sweep the Yankees on the road. And then the San Francisco Giants and Tampa Bay Rays continue to play great baseball. San Francisco leading the National League here in the area that Casey and I are in. And then, of course, the Tampa Bay Rays that about 6,000 people a night know have the best record in baseball, including us there. So we'll go with that coming up all. If you think you've heard everything about Jacob deGrom, we'll give you one more that'll blow your stat away coming up in the baseball segment. Casey Freelove, Vasu Vada Party. Thanks to everybody. Make the Money and Run podcast powered by Stables Media. Thanks to everybody on Facebook and YouTube. We're getting a lot of good responses. I met a new fan today, Casey, on the podcast. He called me directly from a company, and he started talking about how good we were on Facebook and YouTube and TV. So, you know what? Just what we need, another ego boost for us. So how you doing, Casey?
Yeah, how are we going to fit we both already have pretty damn big heads. I don't know how we're supposed to squeeze them into this little box here at the StreamYard. Thank goodness for the StreamYard streaming, I suppose. Doing well. Got a chance to watch a whole lot of hoops over the last week or so, and I'm very intrigued, Vasu. I mean, I know you're bummed as a Lakers fan that your team's not going to be there fighting for the finals, but this league needs fresh blood, and I don't even care if it's going to be small market basketball. Bring on Jazz versus Bucks. Whatever you can throw at us, we'll take it. I know there's a ton of storylines we want to digest, but it's just good to see a little normalcy. You know, I don't think we have one fan story out of the NBA to talk about as far as bad behavior. We'll skip over what happened in Denver last night with the men's national soccer team, which was an absolute disgrace. But as far as getting back to just some normalcy, playoff basketball's here. I'm loving it. And you know I'm a fan of a lot of these teams and these new faces that we're seeing going deeper into the playoffs.
No doubt about it. Monday, Thursdays, and Fridays, you get us at 4:15 on Facebook and YouTube. If you miss any of the segments or the show itself and you miss our picks, that's the part to get to at the end of the show. Download and subscribe on anywhere on Apple or Spotify seems to be the best places. SoundCloud, iHeart, and Google Podcasts as well, too. All right. And by the way, great job by the Giants this weekend on Pride Weekend. If you still have hate, like some Susan Slusser emails came to on Twitter this weekend that I saw, get out of our faces. We don't need any kind of that after 2020, 21. Let people live as long as they're not hurting you. Who cares what other people do? So that's just my disclaimer for what happened this weekend. All right, let's get to it here. What a weekend in the NBA. Game one of the Nets and Bucks series started on Saturday night. James Harden, the big story going out of game one, like early in the first quarter, I think. I couldn't hear it, but it looked like he went out in the first quarter, Casey. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but they still came back from a deficit, able to cover, stay way under the total of 240 that Charlie and I almost fell over on Friday when we saw the total of 240 in playoff basketball. Nowhere near that. They play game two tonight with Milwaukee being a 1-point favorite, and then Phoenix and Denver will open in the West with game one of their series after Denver beat Portland, and Phoenix, who I had Phoenix on Thursday night against the Lakers as an underdog. So sorry, Laker Nation. You know, this is about the money and the Making the Money and Running podcast. So I took Phoenix +3 on Thursday night, and that got me a lot of money. So here we are to Monday night, Casey.
Yeah, it's been quite an interesting run, and I think we were all a little surprised the Lakers were almost a 3-1 favorite entering that series to kind of put a cap on it. Anthony Davis tries to go, hurts his groin. Let's hope that's not a long-term injury for him. But the Suns are motivated. Look, they've got a great coach. They've got one of the best floor leaders of modern times with Chris Paul. And then the Devin Booker factor is just nothing short of amazing. I mean, this guy puts up 47 when his team needs it most. Looks like he could still keep going. That's the beauty of being in your early 20s and talented in the league. You could play double overtime, triple overtime. You don't care. Give me the ball. Let's get out there and go. Also, very, very impressed with the development of DeAndre Ayton, really helping picking up boards, distributing the ball just a little bit, and scoring when called upon. So I think if you're looking for a team that's very balanced and should feel confident tonight, that 5-point home favorite number probably dictates that a little bit as they get ready for Denver. I'm feeling pretty good. I'm buying the Suns. I've been buying them since they were in the bubble last year. And Vasu, I mean, I know you watched the whole series. You know, certain teams just have that feel. I got that feel a little bit during the regular season with the Jazz. You and I and Charlie off air have talked about the Suns quite a bit. I've been joking that I'm going to abandon my hometown Sacramento Kings and become a fan of the Valley of the Desert Sun. But in all seriousness, they're a contender, and their odds have shifted dramatically from before the playoffs started. I think they were like 80-1. Now at some shops, they're down as low as 8-1. So clearly Las Vegas thinks they're a contender, and that means something.
Well, look at what happened to the Phoenix Suns when they played the Lakers. They were a plus 300 to win the series because everybody thought the Lakers, as a 7 seed, were going to come through. And Phoenix said, "Hey, wait a second, we've got the second best record in the West. Why is there all this disrespect because of LeBron James and Anthony Davis?" Now they're probably favored to win the series. Denver, both Michael Porter Jr. and Devin Booker started off Thursday night first quarters both with 22 points. Michael Porter Jr. ended up with 26. He didn't have a great second, third, and fourth, and they had to come back from double digits down, but that shows Denver's acumen to come back. Jokic, of course, 38, 8, and 6. That was a big factor in them coming back and actually winning the game very comfortably at the end to take that series 4-2. All Devin Booker did was go from 22 after 1 to 46 in the other 3 quarters. That game was never that close. The Lakers did make a couple of runs. The final score was not indicative of the game itself. It ended up at 13, but they were down by 30 and they were down by 25. And I felt very good about +3, let alone against my team. But Davis went out. It was kind of a bad deal for Anthony Davis. I don't think he should have played in that game as well. But it'll be a good matchup for Phoenix and Denver. Milwaukee and Brooklyn. We'll see how much Harden impacts the game not being there, because he is a distributor amongst the big three. They averaged 84 of the total points the Nets have scored in the playoffs. 84.8, I think I read the other day, Casey.
Now, I want to talk and spend a minute here setting up kind of what we're going to see as this Nuggets-Suns series gets underway. I was just talking about how well DeAndre Ayton performed. I know Anthony Davis was out of it a little bit, but the Lakers have decent low post presence. Now, potentially what you could see is Ayton with the biggest challenges of his life, of course, potential MVP Jokic, who can do everything from down low, center, power forward, hybrid, whatever you want to call him. Legitimate guy he's going to have to go against, and then maybe waiting in the next round, if the chalk holds, could be a date with Rudy Gobert. So it's kind of interesting, Vasu, coming off an era where centers didn't really matter between the Warriors winning every year or the Cavaliers or the Heat. Maybe we'll get back to some more of that fundamental basketball, and I want to get your thoughts on this because I know you and Chuck were on that under. I've not given out an overplay yet in the playoffs, and you've got to think that Vegas knows people that are there want to see points, want to see scoring. That really gives you an opportunity. It's very rare that in the playoffs you're going to get a game that basically stays, 18 points under the total that was set by the odds makers? That just doesn't occur very often.
Does not occur very often. The unders have been coming through probably at 90% of the clip. You could tell Milwaukee did not shoot very well on Saturday night. The Lakers didn't shoot well against Phoenix. Portland, Dame Lillard did everything he could to keep them in that series with his 55 on Tuesday and then his output on Thursday night. I don't remember what he had on Thursday night, but it was all him on Thursday night, and yet it wasn't enough to get the Blazers into a Game 7. We talk about the Denver Nuggets tonight. Getting 5 points on the road, it's very tempting, but I just like Phoenix's defense a little bit. And I just have a feeling, and a lot of experts are also thinking as far as the Eastern game tonight, that Milwaukee cannot shoot as bad as they did on Saturday night. And their defense is way better than Brooklyn's. And I think they've got a plan in store for Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving tonight. Even Joe Harris is a threat as well, too. And you're right about DeAndre Ayton. DeAndre Ayton was better than Andre Drummond, was better than Marc Gasol, was better than Montrezl Harrell, all combined, because he dominated basically in the middle, and they couldn't stop him. And even the hard fouls couldn't stop DeAndre Ayton, and he was there when Chris Paul was struggling with the shoulder. And then, of course, Booker had his 46, but he wasn't great in the whole series either, and Ayton was there to pick it up. And Jay Crowder hit some big shots, and Cameron Payne even hit some big shots in that series as well, too. So you've got a bench that's pretty good. They can match up with Denver. Of course, no Jamal Murray. Monty Morris does not start for the Nuggets, but he comes in and he scores 22 and really is the Rivera of that game because he closes out those matchups when they're double teaming Jokic and Michael Porter Jr. could not continue his hot shooting in the third and fourth quarter. So I'm very excited about Phoenix, Denver. I'm still excited about Brooklyn and Milwaukee. I think Milwaukee will get to the picks officially later, but I don't think these series are going to be sweeps. I think this is a shot where Milwaukee can get to them, and it won't surprise me if Denver wins, but I'll be surprised if Phoenix's defense plays bad tonight. Let's move on to tomorrow a little bit, Casey, before we get to the baseball stuff. Philadelphia, number one team in the East defensively, number one seed overall in the East, and they get Joel Embiid back on Saturday. And what happens? Where's the defense? They get boat raced for. I know the Hawks are hot, but they were playing the Knicks. This isn't the Sixers or this isn't the '85 Celtics or whatever. They boat raced the number one defensive team in the East with 128 points. The fact that Philadelphia even got back in the game to make it close, they weren't close to covering the game. The game ended up at 4.5 or 5 points once the Embiid factor came back in. But they boat raced them. They were shooting 72% after the first quarter. They got 42 points in the first quarter, did the Atlanta Hawks. And Philadelphia only had 27, I believe, or 28. And it was boat race, and Philadelphia was playing catch-up the rest of the way. Now, maybe the second half will prove their defense to come out in game two, but I got to expect Philadelphia, Doc Rivers especially, very disappointed in that defense, and they're going to come out with a better defensive plan Tuesday night against the Atlanta Hawks.
What the Hawks have done, again, it's kind of like Phoenix East. I really like the way that they've been assembled. Obviously, Trae Young, we knew he was special from the time he was playing at Oklahoma. I mean, the kid's amazing. And when you're that good, you can be that cocky. And I kind of like that he took a bunch of shots at the city of New York on his way out the door. Why the heck not? You just beat the Knicks. Everybody said the Knicks were going to win that series. Not this guy, not that guy I'm talking to, but other people did. So I think the Hawks are playing really well. I mean, the signing of Bogdanovic, who, of course, was a former Sacramento King, great. 16.5 points he's averaging in the playoffs, doing just what you need. The acquisition of Clint Capella, that's a great pickup, too, as far as getting back to if you're going to have to bang down low with the center, somebody who can guard Embiid a little bit. He seems to be capable. And I will say this, I am a little bit surprised that Atlanta won that game. I mean, I've been hot on the Sixers. Obviously, injuries are going to play a huge role in this entire playoffs. We saw it with what happened in LA with Anthony Davis. But this Hawks team, they believe they can win. They certainly had many less regular season wins than did their opponent, the Sixers. But I guess what matters really, Vasu, is how you're playing right now. And I think that, save for Embiid missing a lot of time, Philly should be able to right the ship and get going. I mean, Tobias Harris is having a career year, at least close to a career year. Embiid shooting over 50%. So I think that on paper, I still think Philly's probably the better team. You're going to get much better odds as far as futures betting in this series. I don't have the number in front of me directly, but I think that Philadelphia is the better team. The fun thing about the playoffs is, though, Trae Young doesn't care. This guy just tied, not Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. We got to go back to Lou Alcindor for the most prolific start to a road career in the playoffs. Guys, 30 points a game average for his first 4 on the road. And the thing about that, Vasu, is you're going to be on the road the whole time. You're the lower seed no matter who you play the rest of the way. So if you can build confidence on the road, there's no reason to think this one couldn't be a 6 or 7 game series. And I'm all for that. I want long series. I want to see this thing keep going.
Utah, Memphis, we'll talk about in a second. But the one thing I like about Atlanta is they don't care they're the 5 seed because a lot of people weren't giving them a shot anyway. And, of course, Knicks basketball is very popular in New York. I think they're even more popular than the Nets. And they don't care because everybody talked about Philadelphia and Brooklyn and Milwaukee after their start, the top 3. And anything below 3 was really a non sequitur in a lot of people's eyes. And yet here's Atlanta. They don't give a you-know-what about that. They're going, we're coming in and we're going to take these top 3 seeds down if we have to. And we'll do it one by one. And they picked off the Knicks. They got game 1 of the best of 7 with Philadelphia, and now they're going to go to game 2. Can you imagine if Atlanta won tomorrow night? I mean, I don't think they will. Yeah, it'll be very interesting. And Joel Embiid, Doc Rivers, they're going to have to figure that out. Let's say hi to David Andrews real quick. I think I put his comment up there real quick. David Andrews, I like Rudy Gobert. Very solid rebounder. Nice job, David Andrews. Thanks for the follow on everything. The Suns and Jazz are both tough teams. That is correct. But I like your Gobert comment as we move on to the Utah Jazz. As we move on to the Utah Jazz in Memphis, Utah finally gets to play after 6 days off. They eliminated. I'm sorry, not Memphis. They're playing the LA Clippers. Let me adjust that here. I was gonna say let's take that off and let's adjust it. The LA Clippers. I was so excited about seeing a home team win. I completely forgot that Memphis was not in the tournament anymore. So the LA Clippers are going to play the Utah Jazz, a 4-point favorite. Casey Freelove, you think the Utah Jazz are getting any respect still? A 4-point favorite over the Clippers. Kawhi Leonard, Paul George showed up in Game 7 in spite of Luka's 46 points. The total 220.5. They did cover, the first home team to cover. They did blow them out by double digits, not because of anything Luka Doncic did. He was terrific. But I think Leonard and Paul George, all the criticism that they're getting, they probably showed them that they needed to step up, and they sure did, Casey.
That they did. They're a solid club. I do have some questions, though, about Mike Conley. I mean, you saw him tweak the hamstring a little bit in the win against the Grizzlies in the last game. He actually missed 21 games during this season. And as a couple of guys who've played sports, anytime you tweak a hammy, man, that can be really lingering. And it takes a lot of work from the masseuses and the trainers to get, the cold compress, the warm, the heat, the massage to get that bad boy loose. And they need to have all hands on deck because, look, the Clippers are a team that's easy to hate. They're lovable losers. They've never been relevant as far as the history of the NBA, but they built this team. They brought in a new coach. They've got two of the best players in basketball. And I'll be honest with you, Vasu, I was kind of leaning towards the Mavericks to actually take that one down. They just kind of ran out of steam a little bit, and Doncic is just one man. So what can he do? This is a tasty matchup, though, my friend, especially if we look at the way that Vegas is setting up. Who's left? Your number one choice on the board, of course, the Brooklyn Nets, now down to plus 160. But if we go to 2 and 3, they're playing each other. The Jazz plus 375, that the Clippers getting you 5-1 on your future betting. So I think what they're trying to tell us, from what I'm garnering, looking at the numbers, they think the winner of this series is going to capture the Western Conference. Now, just to let everybody know the others, the Suns are 9-1, and the Nuggets are a real long shot at 18-1. So I think this is a good matchup. It's definitely fan-friendly, and I think it's nice that Utah's going to get a little more exposure. Again, this is a team that you did not see on Thursday night TNT or a lot of ESPN Friday night games, unless they were playing a glamour team like the Lakers or the Bucks or something like that. So America's going to get a look at Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell. And if Mike Conley's healthy, I expect the Jazz to win this series. But again, I feel like all 4 of these series have the potential to go very long. I don't see one being a sweep, maybe one 5-game winner, but 6 and 7 seems like it's going to probably be the rule of thumb this round.
A lot more to talk about the NBA. A lot of people are wondering where these small market teams are. Shout out to our previous guest, Jim Cosmore, who said he's going to buy a jersey for every small market team out there, and he doesn't want big name teams in there, and he's rooting for the Utahs and Milwaukees and Denvers and Phoenix to come through. So, Jim, if you're watching, I surely would like to see a photo of all those jerseys that you said you're going to buy of all those small market teams. So we appreciate that. Thank you, David Andrews. Thank you, Frank O'Neill. Thank you to Taylor Phillips of Stables Media for all checking in and the comments. And, of course, Vinny G. Great show yesterday, Vinny G, on Sunday Spin. Congratulations on your record as well. All right, one quick hockey note before we go to break here. We'll talk a little football and then a lot of baseball to talk about. As very surprising things are going on in Major League Baseball. Boston, a 190 favorite over the Islanders. The Islanders got a win the other day, 2-2 in that series. Montreal, the surprise team of the NHL playoffs, they are 3-0 on Winnipeg, including the first 2 games on the road. Montreal also won that first-round series, coming back against Toronto, the 1 seed, down 3-1. They have basically torched the city of Toronto, which doesn't hurt the Montreal people at all. 3-1 down. They win a Game 7 on the road. They're looking for the sweep against Winnipeg tonight, 5.5 the total. The home teams, $1.75 if you want to take the home teams by goals in the Grand Salami, 10.5. Carey Price for Montreal, the goalie of years past, having himself an outstanding playoff season. It reminds me of when he was 25 years old, and that makes us feel younger too. Tomorrow, Tampa Bay will close out Carolina. Hopefully, we'll close out Carolina. They're up 3-1, a road favorite at $1.20. And then the Las Vegas Knights. I said Colorado's the best team in the NHL, but Las Vegas proved me wrong. 2 home wins, 1 tight win on Friday, 3-2, and then a 5-1 win yesterday over the Avalanche. That series 2-2. A little surprising to me that series is going to go 6. Casey Freelove having gone to school in Las Vegas. The hockey team is there, and they're very popular down there, Casey. What about these Las Vegas Knights before we go to break?
They're so popular. I was actually watching some hockey. That tells you something right there. And getting back to your earlier point, Colorado's 2-1 to win the whole thing. Tampa Bay is getting the second most respect at plus 275, and then the Vegas Golden Knights at 4-1. So again, it feels like they're telling you, logically, the winner of this series should be the team that ends up winning the Western Conference and going on to face probably the Tampa Bay Lightning in the East. You got to appreciate this, Vastu. Even if you're not a hockey fan, the enthusiasm of Sin City for this team. I mean, the hat trick, people tossing hats in a Game 4 situation in the playoffs out onto the ice. I felt electricity inside my house while I was watching that. And, hey, it would be awesome if this thing goes 7, because I agree with you. I think we've got the best 2 teams in the West playing each other right now in this series.
I love the hockey playoffs. It's like watching a movie you haven't seen in a while. It's hard to turn the remote when it gets to the third period and the overtime, because anything can happen, and that even gets me to watch hockey. I love hockey. Marshall Show, the hat trick Casey referred to yesterday in that 5-1 victory. We'll see how the rest of the playoffs go. By the way, you weren't with us on Friday. 18 overtime games and 48 playoff games going into Friday night. I know there were a couple more coming into the weekend, so talk about exciting hockey, and boom, all of a sudden it's over. That's the way the NHL playoffs have been. These are the final 8 teams. We'll get to the final 4 after this round as well. All right, football to talk about and Major League Baseball. This is the Make the Money and Run podcast. Thanks to everybody on Facebook and YouTube for the comments and for the likes and all that. If you miss any of it, including our pick segment, which we'll have later, download and subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. Find that logo in the corner there and pass it along to your friends. We're getting down to cases here in the NBA and the NHL. Back in 30 with the Make the Money and Run podcast. He's Casey. I'm Vasu. We'll see you then. Welcome back to the Make the Money and Run podcast, segment 2 here. A little bit about the NFL. Again, Facebook and YouTube. You can download, subscribe if you missed any of it. Anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple and Spotify seem to be the best, but iHeart, Google, SoundCloud as well, too, for that as well. Monday, Thursdays, and Fridays live right here on Facebook and on YouTube. All right, let's get to the NFL. We know we can talk about the NFL 365 days a year, but we actually have something to talk about, Casey, in terms of the NFL. How about this by the Tennessee Titans? They're looking to improve their offense, even though I thought their offense was pretty good. A lot of Derrick Henry and a lot of Ryan Tannehill, but now they've added to A.J. Brown, who was the number 1 wide receiver, but they acquired a WR1, as they say in fantasy football, for next year, and that is Julio Jones, formerly of the Atlanta Falcons. Not a surprise since he said it himself on TV that he was not going to be back with the Falcons through a phone call. Tennessee for draft picks, Casey. Your thoughts on Tennessee in the AFC South now?
I love that they did that. I'm shocked that the line hasn't adjusted a little bit. I mean, you're still looking at the Titans at 40-1 to win the Super Bowl. That's the kind of thing. If I lived in Nevada and I just had 10 extra bucks, instead of going and buying 2 Starbucks coffees, give me a $10 ticket that could be turned into quite a bit more. I think this is a perfect move. We've talked about Ryan Tannehill, the career renaissance he's enjoyed there in Tennessee, obviously helped by a couple of things. One, they've got the best running back in all of pro football. But you know why he's the best running back? Not just because of his work ethic. They've got a good offensive line blocking in front of him, which of course allows Tannehill time to set up play action. Now, you've already got Brown there. You throw in Julio, you really got to start respecting him. I'd like to see what they do with their tight end shuffling as well, because that's going to open up some things. I think this is a really great move. The thing about it is, Vasu, they got it without having to send a number 1 pick, a first rounder. I like that. Get the second rounder out of the way. Hell, they even got a 6th round pick back out of Atlanta. So there's a few different layers to this. One, they're much better on offense now, but we didn't hear much about them defensively. I have to go back and look at their draft chart to see exactly what they did. But the reason why they didn't get as far this year is not because of their offense. It's because of their defense. Now, the other point on this, if you're the Falcons and you're going to blow it up, quote unquote, what is Matt Ryan now? 35, 34, 36?
Yeah, he's there, man.
Why not just blow the whole thing up? Send him to a potential contender, get even more draft picks, and just kind of ride it out, because I think that his enthusiasm might be dampened a little bit not having his favorite target. Now, the cool thing is, if you're a Falcons fan, obviously you've got enough weapons to where this doesn't even destroy your entire team offensively, but it feels to me like they're looking forward to a couple seasons from now rather than trying to contend right now. And who can fault them? You know, Tampa Bay is going to win that division. Carolina, I'm not sure what to make with all the changes that they've made. And then New Orleans is starting a brand new era. So maybe it's time for the Falcons to think about that. And it's not too late if they decide to do that either. But Julio in Tennessee makes a lot of sense. It was what I was hoping for personally, because Derrick Henry is one of my favorite players of all time already. I mean, Bama roots, of course. But they really got better, man. And I think if they can get that defense to step up and just move up another tier into that middle tier, they're going to be dangerous.
All right, some other NFL news and notes. 49ers rookies had their press conference yesterday, and what was the number 1 thing they talked about? They're talking about the sticker shock for houses. You and I live in the Bay Area. Maybe in Sacramento it's not as bad as it is in the Bay Area, but they're talking about the differences between Trey Lance's hometown and the smallest real estate market in the NFL, Green Bay. I saw that story on ESPN and some of the realtors that were being talked about. I say play well. Don't worry about the housing prices, and everything will take care of itself. So good luck to the 49ers rookies in trying to find a house, but I wouldn't worry about it. After you pick yourself off the floor, you'll be fine in what you find. How about this? Greg Olson's son, the retired tight end, Greg Olson's son, TJ, finally got a heart transplant after 8 years. I like these stories, anything to do with kids. Kids don't deserve some of the things that happen to them with whatever the situation is. The hardest hardest yard initiative that Greg Olson and his wife started. Greg Olson going to become a good broadcaster now that he's retired. I think that's a great story. The Navy midshipman won't let Bucks rookie Cameron Conley play until his 2-year commitment is done. It's a little different in the NFL, Casey. You lose 2 years as an NFL player, you may not get that back. And there's other guys that have played while doing reserve commitments over 2 years. And I think that's a bad look for Navy. If they're trying to do recruiting, this is not the way to do it. And let the kid play with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He's a rookie. And then the last NFL note, I think you remember this story. I brought this up because there's 6 degrees of make the money and run right now. Juwan James signs with the Ravens. Everybody remembers him being cut by the Broncos and not being paid because the Broncos deemed his injury to be a non-football injury when he was working out, which I don't think is true, but we'll find out. He signs a 1-year, $15 million contract with the Ravens to play offensive tackle. The Broncos, he's owed $10 million, and he's asking for $5 million more on the lawsuit that he filed. The players union not involved, and his lawyer, Mark Garagos. How do we know Mark Garagos? Because our sports attorney we have, Daniel Lust, is a 6-month employee now with the Garagos Law Firm in New York. So we may get some information on that. If you're watching, Dan, send us a text and let us know what you think. But what do you think of any of those stories, Casey? Obviously, the Greg Olson story, great story. But how about the Navy not letting Cameron Conley play?
I think it's a bad look for them. You pointed out exactly why. Even some of the, here in Sacramento, we play in what's called the Sac Joaquin section for the California high school football. We've had some guys from here go to these military academies. It's not easy to do that. You have to be an elite level athlete and also at an elite level mentally to be able to get in there. Hell, you have to get a letter from your congressman to go. So to me, the better move for Army, Navy, Air Force, etc., when you do get these kind of once in a lifetime athletes, because let's not kid ourselves, Vasu, these aren't football factories. These kids are here to become the future leaders of our military and armed forces. But when you get an exception like this kid, I think you've got to let him get in there just for the good PR. I remember when David Robinson, the Admiral, was allowed to go play. That worked out pretty good as far as PR. If I'm not mistaken, he was still doing public service announcements for the academy while he was a member of the Spurs. So from just we're media guys. So from a media perspective, it's not a smart move in my opinion. Now, with that said, this young man knew the commitment he was making when he went there. There are rules in place. It's not like signing with Alabama or Ohio State or Oregon. You know that you have to go to the military, but I feel like there has to be a little bit of a gray area, especially, Vasu, by the way, with the changing face of college athletics, with pay for plays about to come into the the zeitgeist, if you will. I think Navy would have been better off just saying, wish the kid luck, get him in here. He's going to be playing with Tom Brady, for goodness sake. You don't think he's going to get a lot of attention on him? I think it would have been a much better move to let him play. And I agree with you also, by the way, 2 years out, when you're that young and you've not played pro football yet, is not a good look.
Might as well be 10 years.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, good for Greg Olson's son, TJ, as well, too. 8 years he's waited since he was born. All right. We'll take 30. We got a lot of baseball to talk about. We're going to talk about Jesse Winker and Jacob deGrom, as well as the San Francisco Giants and the Tampa Bay Rays. Back in 30, this is the Make the Money and Run podcast with Vasu Vadaparty, Casey Freelove on Facebook Live and YouTube as well. Charlie O on assignment. He'll be back with us on Thursday. Back in 30. Welcome back to the Make the Money and Run podcast. Vasu Vadaparty, Casey Freelove here. Charlie O on assignment. He'll be back with us on Thursday. Thanks again to everybody on Facebook and YouTube Live. Our pick segment coming up. We're going to have a short show today, a little bit. Casey's got to get out of here early, and we want to not a lot of baseball to talk about. There's only 3 games, but from the weekend, these are some of the series matchups that are coming in after this last weekend of good baseball. Boston, Houston, after Boston nearly got swept by them last week. Toronto, Chicago, very good series. Tony La Russa leading them. They're 4 games up on the Indians. Toronto's still in 4th place, but they seem like they're playing better baseball. Atlanta, Philadelphia, the records may not be great. The pitching may not be great. Atlanta did take 2 out of 3 from the Dodgers over the weekend at home. Philadelphia did take 2 out of 3 from Washington as well. Cincinnati, Milwaukee, the Cincinnati Reds are red hot. They go into St. Louis and sweep the Cardinals on the road in Busch. Not easy to do considering the Cardinals were playing well. Milwaukee has won 4 straight. Granted, it was Arizona, but they moved up to a tie for first place in the NL Central because the Cubs lost 3 out of 4 to those San Francisco Giants. San Diego tries to get revenge on them after they swept Chicago last week. And then in interleague, the Cleveland Indians, we said 4 games back of the White Sox. St. Louis now a couple of games back of the Milwaukee Brewers and Cubs in the lead. The San Francisco Giants have the best record in the NL, but Evan Longoria's out. Jesse Winker hit 3 home runs yesterday in that sweep yesterday against St. Louis. He's an MVP candidate. The Red Sox sweep in New York. And Jacob deGrom. Before I get to baseball, Casey, I want to tell you this Jacob deGrom stat. Jacob deGrom, we all know how good he is, and we've all heard all the superlatives. There are 8 pitchers in Major League Baseball combined that have thrown first inning pitches over 100. Jacob deGrom, even with the injuries aside, has thrown pitches in the first inning of 100 miles an hour or more 57 times. 57 times versus the combined combination of 8 for everybody else. He's 6-2 with a 0.61. He would not have 2 losses if the Mets scored any runs in those games that he did. He would be right there with Jack Flaherty at 8 wins right now, guaranteed. I think he has a couple of no decisions too, if we're at that point. So Casey, there you go. The painting, the easel's clean. Go ahead, take your baseball shots.
Well, the Mets are still interesting to me because they have played so many less games than the rest of the league. I mean, they're at 29-23. Most of the other teams have played a little bit closer to 60 games, if I'm not mistaken with my math. The Mets are down here at 52, so they're going to have some work to do. Look, I love deGrom. I mean, the guy's amazing. He's the kind of guy at this point that should win every single start. I mean, he looks like, Randy Johnson in his prime. Just think of the elites, Pedro at his best. I mean, this guy is the best pitcher in Major League Baseball. And the one thing we got to say about the organization, they tried. They are trying. I mean, they're spending a little bit of money. They've got a change in ownership. They have left behind the Madoff scandal and everything that happened with the Mets in years past. And they do have enough pieces to probably stay in contention up near the top of the National League East. I think all 3 of us before the season started were kind of debating whether we like the Braves or the Mets. I also threw the Phillies in there as a wild card. And look, they're 1 game under 500. They may have some noise to make. Things set up very nicely for the Mets, no matter who's on the mound this week, because they get to go into Baltimore for 3 games, and the Orioles stink at 21-38, including a 10-20 home record. So I think if you're a Mets fan, you're probably going to be smiling this week. I am intrigued by the first series you mentioned there, especially the way the Astros took care of the Red Sox last time. Now we shift venues. We go over to the East Coast. You've got Framber Valdez against Martin Perez to get things started tomorrow, 7:10 Eastern time. That's a good matchup. They're very comparable as far as records. Houston 33-26, Boston 36-23. Astros playing 500 ball away from Houston. Red Sox 3 games over 500 at home. That one is going to be a little bit telling. And it's kind of cool that we're already getting these meaningful series because other than that, there are some duds this week. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. Diamondback A's, not intriguing even for this A's fan. Royals at Angels, I guess I could take a look. I do like, though, and I'll throw it back to you on this, Cubs-Padres get going tonight. I've got to play on this game. Chicago's been playing some pretty good baseball. Now, we know what San Diego brings to the table, especially when Tatis is healthy and doing his thing. But the Cubs are a team that I think is getting lost in the shuffle a little bit. It's kind of hard to do that when you're talking about one of the top 5 media markets. But they're a team in a series like this can really show what they're made of and continue to try and keep it relevant there in the NL Central. I think that's probably the best series of the one I'm looking forward to most right now. And I'm not going to be surprised if Chicago can't pick up a couple of wins. I know they struggled in San Francisco, but they are a pretty good team overall. They 7 games above 500, not the best away split as far as a 12-16 record, but I think that they might be in position to pick up some wins in this series. You like this one, right?
NL Central, good matchups right now. The top 4 teams, including the Reds, are back. Jesse Winker, if you haven't heard of him, he's hitting .345 with 16 home runs. I think somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 RBIs. So he's an MVP candidate. Brandon Crawford right now probably leading the MVP deal with the year that he's had, and he plays a defensive position. The plays he made over the weekend against the Cubs were phenomenal, the way Brandon Crawford played. The Longoria injury now is 4 to 6 weeks with a dislocated shoulder, a little shoulder separation, and that's bad. Tampa Bay still playing well. They're the best record in Major League Baseball as well, too. I'm interested to see how the Giants, they're going to go to Texas and they're going to go to Washington these next few games before they come back home next week. And the Dodgers have the Pirates and the Padres and Cubs. The Cubs swept them last week. If you were not here with us on Friday, you in the audience, in case he was not here on Friday with us, I went on a massive rant about why I say the Padres are not as good as they're going to be because they're getting a lot of love. And Charlie tried to bring me down off the ledge with that because we would have run out of time on the show if I kept going with it. So go ahead and download that if you want to hear my anti-Padres rant and the made-up rivalry with the Dodgers. So that'll be all that I say about that. But a lot of things going on. Only 3 games in Major League Baseball today. We'll hit them real quick before we get to our picks. The makeup game between the Red Sox, it's not on here because they changed pitchers. The Red Sox and Marlins are going to play at 5:10, which is about 20 minutes from now. I do have the Red Sox. They changed pitchers from Pablo Lopez to Zach Thompson making his Major League debut. Nick Pivetta going for the Red Sox. They had a rain out when they played earlier in the year, and this is the makeup game from that May 30th game. Nick Pivetta 7-1, I believe, and he's $1.90. It was $1.40 with Pablo Lopez, the Marlins ace, on the mound, but they switched it out, and it's going to be Zach Thompson making his debut against the Red Sox. So what do you do when that happens? You load up on the Red Sox more. So I listed pitchers, so that's why I had to take a second bet. We tell you to list pitchers for that reason. If you had Miami and didn't list the pitchers, you would be not feeling so good about yourself with Zach Thompson making his Major League debut against that Red Sox lineup. The aforementioned Padres 116 at home with Ryan Weathers, who's turned in great performances. Adbert Alzolay for the Cubs pitched very well, the total 8 in San Diego. And then Dylan Bundy, they took 2 out of 3 for the Mariners over the weekend. The Angels are 148 versus the Royals, who are still above 500. Patrick Kowar making his Major League debut as well today against Dylan Bundy, Casey.
Well, Dylan Bundy's like Brad Peacock for the 2012-2013 Astros. This guy's barely in baseball. I am flabbergasted by this spread. The only play you can make on this game is the over. I mean, I cannot touch the Angels at minus $1.40 or minus $1.50 with a guy that's got a 6.5 earned run average and no wins on the season. Yes, I know the Royals aren't great, but they're not terrible either. Another thing I want to point out as we look at the entire slate, they just adjusted this as you were talking, as far as Thompson being put in there against Pivetta with that Marlins Red Sox series. The total was at 10.5. Now it's down to 10. So maybe they know something about Zach Thompson that you and I don't. But it's feeling to me like there's going to be runs scored in those first 2 games. I'll have a play here in just a moment on the Cubs and Padres. And I kind of dictated my logic as to why I think Chicago is going to bounce back tonight. And Vasu, if I'm not mistaken, is this not the lightest slate we've had across Major League Baseball for any singular day so far?
Yeah, something about today that's significant, but there was only 2 scheduled games, and that was the Angels and Royals, and the Padres and Cubs. The Marlins game is a makeup game. All right, our world famous unsponsored end of the show segment of our picks. Unsponsored still. That's a key word there for the listening audience. Fire away, Casey.
I certainly will. All right, look, James Harden's out. That's not the only reason I'm going with this. I feel like Milwaukee is the one team that can really push Brooklyn to the brink, and I think they'll be able to do so starting tonight. I'm going to take Milwaukee with the pick'em. I know the game's in Brooklyn. I know that Durant and Kyrie are very capable of doing their thing. Harris is maybe the best three-point shooter going in these playoffs, but I just feel like Giannis and company have the defensive efficiency and ability to hold opponents down, which, again, you explained to me why this total's so damn high. I have no idea why they're putting it up at 237. But I think the Bucks do even the series tonight and make it a lot more intriguing heading back to Wisconsin. I can't play the full 5 with Phoenix because I have a lot of respect for Denver. If they had Jamal Murray, this would be a different point spread. But I am going to ride with the Suns. They're the hot hand. Devin Booker's on fire. Let's go money line, baby. I'm willing to lay 2-1 odds, minus 210. Phoenix to get it done tonight. Cubs, talk a little bit about them. They're due. By the way, on OddsShark right now, Vasu, 94% of the money is on Ryan Weathers and the Padres. And what's kind of our standard rule when 90% of the money?
Your standard rule.
My standard rule. Fade the public. I'm going against them. Give me plus 105 with the Cubs. And again, as Vasu pointed out, always list your pitchers if that's what you're looking at. You're handicapping pitching, get the listed pitchers on there. And I'll throw out an early play since we won't be there tomorrow. If Vasu does a quick hit, he can throw this back out there. Give me the Sixers, man. I mean, I think they're going to come out. They're going to say, okay, we stumbled a little bit. Trae Young had a nice little game, but we're the favorite in the East. We're the 1 seed. They're not going to go down 0-2 and I think they're going to come out and really perform well. So I'll throw that one out there as an early tease.
Sixers were embarrassed on Sunday, giving up 128 points. They will not give up 128 points tomorrow night against Atlanta. I like the Cubs pick, Phoenix and Milwaukee. I, too, am going to go with the Milwaukee Bucks. I got them early at -1. No James Harden. That's not the reason. Milwaukee cannot play as bad as they did, cannot shoot as bad as they did. They're still 5th in the NBA in offensive efficiency. I'm going to go with I'm going with the Milwaukee Bucks tonight to even that series. Phoenix -5 against Denver for the reasons we said with defense. I think they'll shut Denver down. Denver had a tough time with Portland, and I think Phoenix will make enough shots, and watch out for the Phoenix bench. Chicago, San Diego, that night air in San Diego, Ryan Weathers, really, really good. Adbert Azalea has pitched very well for the Cubs as well, and their bullpen's very underrated. They did get the game yesterday to avoid the sweep in San Francisco. They're still tied for first with the Brewers. Under 8 tonight, and then the Boston Red Sox -190. I had them at 146. That part of the bet is off the board with no Pablo Lopez, but with Zach Thompson there, I redid it. Listed pitchers with Pivetta and Thompson at 190. All right. Thanks to everybody on Facebook Live. Thanks to everybody on YouTube. Thanks to everybody for downloading and subscribing. Anywhere you get your podcast, find the logo, download, rate, subscribe, review, anything you want. Get with us on social media, mtmarpodcast@gmail.com if you want us to talk about games. Charlie will be back with us on Thursday. We'll see you at 4:15 Thursday afternoon. Good luck to your games. Good luck with the week. Enjoy the games. And we will see you Thursday at 4:15. That's the Make the Money and Run podcast. Vasivada Party, Casey Freelove signing off. Have a great afternoon. Talk to you soon.